Good afternoon. It's Wednesday, the 4th of February. I'm Erin Viner, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. The gruesome death of Jordanian pilot Muath al-Qasasbeh at the hands of the Islamic State has stunned and shocked many around the world. The Hashemite kingdom has vowed a harsh response and quickly executed 2 Islamist terrorists. We get more in this report from IBA's Margot Dukevich.
Jordan vowed a swift and lethal response to the murder of captured Jordanian fighter pilot Lieutenant Muath al-Qasasbeh, hours after the Islamic State released video footage showing the pilot being burnt alive in a cage. Qasasbeh was captured in December when his fighter jet went down in the ISIS stronghold of Raqqa in Syria. Before dawn this morning, Jordan executed Sajida Rishawi, the female al-Qaeda would-be suicide bomber the Islamic State had initially sought to release in exchange for the 2 Japanese hostages and the Jordanian pilot. Just days ago, Amman said it would release Rishawi, but first wanted proof the pilot was alive. Rishawi was involved in a bombing attack in an Amman hotel in 2005 that killed dozens. The second prisoner was identified as Ziad al-Kabuli. King Abdullah received the news of the pilot's death in Washington, where he met with US President Barack Obama. In a televised address to his nation before returning to Amman, the king said Muath al-Qasasbeh was a heroic pilot who died a martyr for his country. He called on all Jordanians to stand up as one and unite. He declared ISIS a cowardly terrorist group that has nothing to do with Islam. World condemnation of the gruesome killing of the Jordanian pilot was swift.
I just got word of the video that had been released. I don't know the details of the confirmations, but should in fact this video be authentic, it's just one more indication of the viciousness and barbarity of this organization, and it, I think, will redouble the vigilance and determination on the part of a global coalition to make sure that they are degraded and ultimately defeated.
Secretary General condemns the killing of Jordanian Royal Air Force pilot Muath al-Qasasbeh by Daesh, a terrorist organization with no regard for human life. The Secretary General's thoughts are with Mr. al-Qasasbeh's family and loved ones. He shares their sorrow and stands today in solidarity with the government and people of Jordan in denouncing this appalling act.
In Amman this morning, Jordanians still reeling from the pilot's death flocked to the newspaper stands. In Karak, the pilot's hometown, his father Safi Qasasbeh described his son a martyr and demanded the country take revenge. Jordan's decision to join the US-led coalition airstrikes on ISIS targets in Syria and Iraq has been harshly criticized at home. The Jordanian pilot was a member of one of the largest tribes in the kingdom, considered the backbone of support to the Jordanian monarchy. Many fear Jordan's involvement in the US-led war may provoke military backlash. However, others believe that the brutality of the Islamic State against a fellow Muslim could backfire and draw the wrath of other Sunni Muslims in the region against them. Margot Dukevich, IBA News.
The Associated Press today published an exclusive interview with 2 diplomats who say that the United States and Iran are discussing a compromise agreement that would permit Tehran to maintain much of its uranium-enriching technology but reduce its potential to create nuclear bombs, because Tehran has so far reportedly refused to cut its nearly 10,000 operating centrifuges. The proposal under consideration reportedly suggests that they may be reconfigured to actually reduce the amount of uranium produced. According to one of the sources, the compromise deal may also include other limitations to ensure that the nuclear program is held in check, including a commitment from Tehran to export most of the uranium that it enriches so that the Islamic Republic will be rendered incapable of producing weapons. The international negotiations are due to be resumed on Friday along the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference. Joining me now here in the studio is the chairman of the Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations, Malcolm Hoenlein. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Tell me, are you troubled by the downplaying by the Obama administration of the connection between worldwide terrorism and Islamist extremism?
It's regrettable that not just in the United States, but in Europe and elsewhere, there's a refusal to name the name. And you cannot isolate them, you cannot identify them, you cannot deal with them if you're not willing to acknowledge it. And I think it's damaging to other Muslims. I think it's damaging in general to the effort to address terrorism. If you can't name them and shame them, you can't defeat them.
Well said. All right, right now there's a major controversy brewing, which of course you're very well aware of, about House Speaker Boehner's invitation for Prime Minister Netanyahu to address Congress. Where do you stand on that issue?
Look, I think that the ties between the United States and Israel are so important and so overriding that any incident, and they're always with every president and every prime minister, because the relationship is so close and because they're so complicated. Every day there are so many things going on between the United States and Israel. We can't allow anything, any incident, perceived insult, not perceived insult, to interfere with the relationship. And I hope that we can resolve it. The Prime Minister looks at the issue of Iran. We've heard the report about some of the negotiations, and he is concerned. He sees it as an existential danger, and any opportunity to present the case, whether Mr. Boehner should have called the president and whether the White House overreacts or calling it, diplomatic improprieties and other things. What's important is that we stand together against Iran, and we should not allow this to divide. We should come together in a united front because Iran poses a danger to Israel, to the region, to America, to the world, and it's a global danger.
Is the Jewish community taking a stance on the possible advancement of legislation by Congress to impose new sanctions against Iran, despite the fact that that is creating friction with the White House, and Obama, of course, is threatening to veto any such legislation?
Well, the Congress has put it off until March, but the putting it off was meant to assure that there would be an override majority. Senator Menendez, who has been a hero in this effort, did not do it to back off, but in fact felt that this was the most appropriate strategy. And again, here, I think the administration should be joining Congress, working together, because sanctions is what brought the Iranians to the table. Sanctions is what will make them much more serious at the table. They cannot be allowed to have a nuclear weapons capacity. They cheated in the past, they will cheat in the future. We know that that's their history. So even leaving them with a limited capacity means that they can exploit it in other ways, secret facilities, etc. So the Congress and the President have the same goal. We do not want, and the President has assured he will not allow them to have a nuclear weapon. It's also the capacity to have a nuclear weapon that we should bar.
Exactly. We have just a little bit of time left. Tell us about what the focus of your trip is right now to Israel and what else is on your itinerary before you get home.
Well, I'm here now to meet with officials and to prepare for our annual conference, which begins February 15th here. And it's our 41st annual conference in Israel.
That's amazing.
All the leaders of Israel will be addressing it. Prime Minister, certainly coming in an election time makes it even more exciting than usual. And of course, the events here in Israel's north and the region also will be highlights. And before that, we are going to Vienna and Bratislava to meet with government officials, but also to meet with the head of the IEA, the OSCE, to deal with anti-Semitism, the IEA to talk about Iran, to meet with those officials who are dealing with transparency and inspections so that we can learn about what their findings are and how we can make them more effective.
Good luck with your mission. We look forward to seeing you back here again. Malcolm Hoenlein, as always, good to have you with us.
My pleasure.
Thank you. In other news, the 8 female victims of yesterday's horrific traffic accident in the Negev are being laid to rest this afternoon at the Bedouin township of Hura, where a day of mourning has been declared. We get more from IBA's Aryeh O'Sullivan.
The families of the 8 women killed leveled blame for the wreck on the driver of the tractor trailer, as well as the police for allowing him to drive. The crash, which also injured 28 people, happened near the entrance to Lahavim on Route 31 north of Beersheba. An initial investigation found that a tractor being hauled by the truck had come loose and jutted out into the lane of the oncoming traffic. When it hit the bus, it slashed through metal and flesh. The passengers were mostly women who had been returning from worship at Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque. The village of Hur declared a day of mourning, canceling schools and closing shops. The funerals of the 8 women is expected this afternoon, as soon as the process of identifying them is complete. Ironically, the tractors were returning from plowing up fields illegally planted by Bedouin, and the police escort they had was to prevent angered Bedouin from retaliating against the tractors. Tensions were already high, and the accident put the Bedouin communities to the point of rage. Police have arrested the driver, identified as Salam Abu Ghanem from Ramleh, and he reportedly had over 100 traffic violations. The driver of the bus was also temporarily detained on suspicion of negligence. Police said the cause of the wreck was human error, but if the road had been wider or had a barrier, it could have been avoided. President Reuven Rivlin spoke to the head of the Hura Regional Council to express the country's sorrow over the deaths of the mothers and grandmothers. The wreck sparked calls to improve the highway, prone to bloody accidents over the years. Transportation officials said that the extension of Highway 6, slated to open later this year, would alleviate some of the heavy traffic on the road. Perhaps, but for the families at Hura, it's too late. Aria O'Sullivan for IBA News.
Turning to campaign news, and the Central Election Committee has ordered Habayit Yehudi members to stop giving out fruit for today's Tu B'Shvat holiday, and the Zionist camp's economic platform has been rolled out. Here with more is IBA's political correspondent, Eli Wogelenter.
It's Tu B'Shvat, the new year for trees, a day for eating and celebrating the earth's bounty, but not if it crosses political lines, apparently. Central Election Committee Chairman Justice Salim Jubran issued a temporary injunction today against Habayit Yehudi giving out dried fruit in honor of the holiday, saying it breaks the law. Jubran cited an article of the election law which states that election campaigning cannot include gifts and, with the exception of events in private homes, cannot be connected to giving out food or drink. Volunteers have been giving out thousands of dried fruit packages with a Tu B'Shvat poem and the Habayit Yehudi logo on the label in cities across Israel. Habayit Yehudi is not the only party incorporating food items into its campaign. Yesterday, Shas distributed pita stamped with the words, "Lapid is concerned with sushi, we are concerned with bread," implying that Yair Lapid focuses on the middle class rather than the lower socioeconomic classes. No legal complaints have been filed against Shas for its food distribution being an election bribe. Turning to the Zionist Union, Emmanuel Trachtenberg, the party's nominee for finance minister, unveiled the party's economic platform yesterday, in which he called to provide land in the public domain for housing developments for free and to increase overall government expenditure. The rationale of his housing policy is that by making land, which makes up a considerable portion of the cost of housing, make it free, the prices would drop. According to Trachtenberg, the government should subsidize long-term rentals on a sliding scale. The Zionist Union was attacked from both left and right following the presentation, with the Likud saying the plan was a bad check that would empty the state coffers. Meretz, on the other hand, slammed the plan for failing to redistribute assets. Meretz MK Ilan Gilon said free land allocation is indeed welcome, but alongside it there must be an initiative to build a budget for providing comprehensive solutions to the problem of housing in Israel, increasing public housing, affordable housing, and rental housing. Conspicuously absent from the event were other leading labor politicians who were reportedly unhappy about the platform. The Kulanu party, headed by Moshe Kachlon, issued a statement saying even senior labor members realize that Trachtenberg shouldn't be finance minister and are expressing a lack of faith in him and his economic plan. This plan isn't serious, implementable, or relevant. Finally, the Central Election Committee has ruled that election advertisements will begin broadcasting on television and radio on March 3rd. Erin?
Thanks for that report. In other news, former New York Supreme Court Justice Mary McGowan Davis will take the helm of the United Nations probe into last summer's Gaza conflict after William Shabazz resigned the position yesterday amid allegations of anti-Israel bias. Davis previously served on the follow-up committee to the Goldstone report about the 2009 war with Gaza. Findings of the current commissioner slated for release on March 23rd. Government officials say that based on the previous record of the Human Rights Council against the state, they expect the report to be fundamentally and unfairly critical of Israel and should be shelved, which is a position backed by the United States.
Opposed the creation of the Commission of Inquiry in the first place. So we remain concerned, given the one-sided nature of the resolution that created the Commission of Inquiry and the history of the HRC's stance on Israel. We still don't believe that such a mechanism as the Commission of Inquiry contributes to the shared goal and priority of reaching a sustainable and durable agreement. That has been consistently our view.
Sir Martin Gilbert has passed away at the age of 79. The British historian authored over 80 books, including many works about Israel and the Holocaust. He was also the official biographer of Sir Winston Churchill. Gilbert was awarded knighthood in 1995 for his contributions to British history and international relations. Many praise his books and atlases for their meticulous scholarship with the clear and objective presentation of complex events. Sir Gilbert has gone on record describing himself as a proud practicing Jew and a Zionist. He is survived by his wife Esther, who is a historian about the Holocaust in her own right. The mysterious death of Argentinian state prosecutor Alberto Nisman continues to rock the South American nation. Prosecutor Viviana Fine, charged with investigating Nisman's death, held a press conference to confirm that a document was found in Nisman's trash can calling for the arrest of the nation's president, Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner. The documents were discovered by police as they scoured the apartment for clues over whether Nisman committed suicide or was murdered. Fine said that the document has been placed on file. Nisman was found dead of a single gunshot wound to the head on January 18th, the day before he was set to testify before Congress about his allegations that the president was working to cover up Iran's involvement in the 1994 bombing at a Buenos Aires Jewish community center that claimed 85 lives. One man has been arrested in Canada and two others charged with terrorism and conspiracy offenses linked to the Islamic State. 23-year-old Khadar Khalib was charged in absentia for leaving Canada to participate in activities of a terrorist group and counseling a person to participate in the activity of a terror group. 24-year-old John McGuire has been charged with facilitating activity and conspiring to contribute to a terror group, also in absentia. 25-year-old Aso Peshdari faces the same charges and is the only one of the Ottawa area men in custody. The police stressed that the Canadian public was never in any immediate danger and that law enforcement is committed to confronting terrorism.
Through each terrorist-related charge we lay and each arrest we make, we send a message which illustrates our strong resolve to root out terrorist threats.
Two French soldiers were wounded in a knife attack outside of a Jewish cultural center in the southern city of Nice. One of the victims was guarding the center when he was stabbed by the perpetrator. The other was hurt while coming to his aid while patrolling the area with his partner. Both suffered light wounds, one to the cheek and the other to the arm. The assailant has been identified as Moussa Koulibaly, whose attempts to join jihadi fighters in Syria and Iraq were blocked by French and Turkish police last week. According to a senior official, when Koulibaly discovered that his two enormous knives were ineffective against the soldiers' flak jackets during his attack, he then targeted their faces. Both he and a suspected accomplice have been arrested. The soldiers were part of an anti-terrorism patrol at the Jewish Community Center in Nice as part of stepped-up security measures in the aftermath of last month's terror attacks against the Charlie Hebdo newspaper and the kosher supermarket in Paris. Here at home, and turning to sports, the Israel Soccer League is in shock over the transfer of Hapoel Tel Aviv star midfielder Gili Vermut to arch crosstown rivals Maccabi. The move is even more stunning, coming just one day after the two teams competed against the other in what is always a hotly contested match. Vermut played in the derby in what was a lackluster 2-0 Hapoel loss to Maccabi. The move came on the final day of the local transfer window. The 29-year-old Vermut signed a 3.5-year contract with the two-time defending champions, joining former Hapoel players Eran Zahavi and Tal Ben Chaim, who also moved to Maccabi in recent years. Hapoel is in dire financial straits and received 700,000 shekels from Maccabi for Vermut, while also obtaining the rights to other players and additional considerations. Hapoel said that the deal is worth a total of a much-needed 1.2 million shekels, but that didn't stop outraged Hapoel fans from protesting outside the club's training complex. Now we have some rare and breathtaking images for all those bird watchers out there, or anyone who appreciates nature's beauty, as we see in this report from Alexandra Jen about the dancing clouds of starlings soaring in the southern skies.
Near the Bedouin town of Rahat, high in the Israeli skies, a flock of starlings performs their migration dance. They morph into formations as though it is a well-choreographed routine, ebbing and flowing into and out of each other. Watch as their mesmerizing movement mimics that of a dancer, each position gracefully flowing into the next. These cloud-like formations are called murmurations. It is a way to help the starlings find food and is considered a defense mechanism for smaller birds who use power in numbers to overcome their predators. It's a natural phenomenon that we rarely get to see in Israel, especially in the last 2 decades. Until about 20 years ago, millions of starlings would annually grace us with their presence, typically flying to Israel from Russia and Eastern Europe. Then, for reasons experts cannot yet explain, the starlings diminished. It was only in 2012 when the birds began to spread their wings again and were spotted in the skies above the Sea of Galilee. Though from a distance the starlings appear to be black, they are actually iridescent. Their feathers are a myriad of colors, at times changing shades depending on the angle. The petite bird is also known for its mimicry, capable of imitating the sounds of other birds and animals, even man-made sounds like those of a car. Hundreds of thousands of these special birds have returned to Israel this year in an ethereal fashion. We can only hope that next year we are lucky enough to see another sky dance of the starlings. Alexander Jen for IBA News.
Stunning. Well, as mentioned earlier, today is Tu B'Shvat, known as the New Year for trees. It's customary to eat 10 specific fruits and almonds known to have been harvested in the land of Israel and drink 4 cups of wine while reciting appropriate Hebrew blessings. The holiday is also traditionally commemorated by the planting of saplings, but such activity is actually forbidden this year because it's the Shemitah sabbatical, meaning that there is a biblical injunction commanding the land to lie fallow and rest every 7 years. Taking a look at local finance, and the shekel today gained strength against all major foreign currencies, and share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange were up across the board. Here's a look at the afternoon numbers. The IBA weather team tells us that we can expect mostly cloudy skies tomorrow with a slight rise in temperatures and winds toward evening. Here's the forecast at home and abroad over the next 24 hours. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. Laura Cornfield will be at this desk tomorrow to bring you all the latest news from Israel. I'm Erin Viner, wishing you a great evening and shalom from Jerusalem.